Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. And if you're new here, welcome. This is the weekly podcast, and I am your host and commentator, Bran Strong. Try not to sound fake, and it just sounds faker. We're going to start off a little light today with a little comment about the whole YouTube situation, which happens to be the platform I have to be on because Lord knows you're not going to see me on regular TV, and you're not going to find me on the people that are paying people to do commentary outside of YouTube, whatever that is, like maybe the radio. I don't know where they do this because what I'm doing is pretty new, pretty fresh, pretty bold. One thing's for sure, pretty hard to believe me getting paid to do this. I might, try to get user support eventually, but right now everything I'm doing is just out of love. Strictly out of love, people. I love what I'm doing and I do what I love. And thanks to a lot of people like me that in Michigan especially, because it's pretty much where I live, so I live by their laws. We're doing pretty good here. Our medical marijuana program is the worst one in the universe, but it's pretty much better than most other states. We'll say that. It's a little bit like I don't know. It's like any other place. It's not really a protection against the cops coming in and knocking you down, but at the same time, it's a little bit of an incentive for them not to do that too. So whatever. Anyway, we're gonna get into this weekly podcast. As usual, one more thing before I get into it. I did just go to the Hash Bash in Michigan, which, if I'm not mistaken, it's the oldest legalized marijuana rally that I know of. If someone knows one that's older than that, that's still going, like, let me know about it, because I've never heard of it. But anyway, this was the 46th annual Hash Bash, and attendance was record numbers. And believe me, it was. It was unbelievable. There was so many people there. It was beautiful. It was like the U of M, University of Michigan Diag, where they hold it, was basically blown out. Like there was nowhere left for people to conjugate. It was full from side to side, front to back. And that usually means about 5,000 to 7,000 people are there, depending on the density, and it was very dense. So we'll lean closer towards the 7. And then simultaneously, there was this other party called the Monroe Street Fair about 3 blocks away, where there was an additional maybe 5,000 to 7,000 people. And of course, the crowds in between and the extra people all around Ann Arbor, Michigan. I would say that the attendance level was over 12,000. So that was, it felt like a celebration rather than, hey, we're here to fight the system. It felt like we already won something. But remember, last year in Michigan, Michigan government, mainly Dick Snyder and his Republican cronies, decided to screw over the ballot people, my legalize, and we didn't get on the ballot. We didn't get to vote for it, and if we did, it would have overwhelmingly won. Michigan passed medical marijuana in 2008 by a landslide of like 64%. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure recreational would fly no matter what. You could say legalize recreational marijuana and have farm stands selling it on the side of the road, and it would get voted in Michigan. People really are ready. My legalize, by the way, is starting up another petition drive. Well, not another one, but I guess you could say another one. And I also seen the Cannabis Coalition is also gearing up for another run at the petition process. We'll see how that all goes. Michigan's got some really strict rules on petitioning now, like the 180-day rule. It's unbelievable. You get 6 months to get a 250,000 signatures. It's like it comes out to around 4,000 a day. But we'll see what happens. So on with the news. We start out with the world news. And this time we have South Africa decided, you know what? We're going to listen to the people and see what they have to say. Let's check it out. Jeremy Acton smoked a lot of daga, and I guess that's what they call marijuana in South Africa, as he wrote his legal arguments pushing for its decriminalization. That's what the head of the Daga Party of South Africa credits the weed for its landmark court victory in the Western Cape High Court on Friday that has now given the green light to private use of daga at home. Quote, I used a lot of cannabis while I answered the state's lies, propaganda, and prejudice, says Acton. That's why I say this case is not won by cannabis, not just by me. It's a victory for the plant and its people. Acton, with Garrett Prince, a Rastafarian lawyer, and 18 others had brought the case before the High Court in December on the grounds that cannabis should not be a forbidden substance as listed in the Drugs and Trafficking Act. What matters, he says, is that the full bench ruled in their favor, finding that possession, cultivation, and private use of daga at home should not be forbidden. Quote, the judge respects the right to private use and private consumption and cultivation in the domestic setting, explains Acton. It doesn't approach, for example, commercial production, selling, or buying of cannabis. But it's actually a first step that allows Rastafarian people to practice their religion without harassment. Hopefully, profiling by police against those wearing the colors may actually be reduced. The court ruled that Parliament had 2 years to change the sections of the Drug Trafficking Act and the Medicines Control Act. The Constitutional Court still has to confirm the ruling and send it to the National Assembly, which plaintiffs hope will happen this year. Until then, the private use is still illegal. The Medical Innovation Bill before Parliament is giving the entire resource to centralized corporate control. The government is trying to appropriate this resource and give it to the pharmaceutical industry. Sound familiar? I did a story last year about the situation in Jamaica, where Jamaican government was considering legalizing recreational marijuana because they seen the tourism dollars in Colorado. I think really what they're seeing is a tourism decline in Jamaica as they were cracking down harder on marijuana, and tourism was just kind of on a decline anyway because of several factors, including marijuana's decriminalization and legalization in America, and the tourism industry in America booming because of that, especially in Colorado. So basically, the judgment, he says, this judgment puts cannabis into everybody's backyards for private use, and that means the public's health will start to see benefits. I'm not going to read the rest of it, but I'm going to say that it also is a push for this Rastafarian type, almost libertarian approach to cannabis legalization, where you just say, okay, people, just do whatever, do what you want in your home. We're not going to care. Still prohibits public use or whatever, and distribution is still probably illegal under their whatever the current system is. And this has been tried in several other arenas and venues around the world with no success at all. The one that stands out in my mind is in Michigan last year. We had 3 competing ballot initiatives at one time, but only My Legalize ended up getting enough signatures. There was another one called Michigan Abrogate Marijuana. And what they did is basically this approach: just take the prohibition right off of marijuana, take it right out of the government's hands, the police's hands, and then people can just grow their own marijuana and do whatever they want with it, I'm not sure what kind of limitations there would have been on that, but it was one paragraph, so probably none. So that's a pretty cool. South Africa and Argentina legalizes medical cannabis and creates a research program with free access. I don't know if this is a first or not, but I haven't heard of the government providing cannabis medicine to anybody yet. Argentina's Senate has given final legislative approval to a bill legalizing the use of cannabis oil and other marijuana derivatives for the medicinal purposes, and setting up a regulatory framework for the state to prescribe and distribute them to patients. The The legislation approved by senators Wednesday also creates a medical marijuana research program at the health ministry, which must guarantee free access to cannabis oil and other derivatives to patients who join the program. The legislation was passed by the Chamber of Deputies earlier. This kind of addresses a problem that I keep having and seeing, where you have medical marijuana, which works for a lot of conditions and works for a lot of people, whereas other medicine hasn't worked. And the other medicine that don't work is covered by insurance. But the cannabis is not, and it works. So I'm seeing that all over the place. That'd be nice if we can get some kind of a system where if you have like these kids with seizures or whatever you have, where the medical marijuana works, and people can't afford it, because to be honest, it's kind of expensive now that it's still in its infancy stages. One of the things that's costing us a lot of money in America, especially, is the fact that we have to grow indoors. So the cost of production is dramatically increased just because we have to pay for the sunlight, which is free if you grow outdoors. Anyway, legislation approved by senators Wednesday. Yeah, we already read that. So, quote, in history, the big things always come in small steps, says Valeria Salick, president of a private pro-medical marijuana group called Mama Cultiva Argentina, which has argued that cannabis can radically change the quality of life for children suffering from everything from HIV to epilepsy. Her group is already lobbying to push the legislature further to permit the families of patients to grow their own marijuana. Under the new legislation, the government agencies will be authorized to grow cannabis oil and derivatives for patients. So I guess that might be why if you join the program, basically they have to give you the marijuana. And it's all like a socialized program. So, so far I like it, as long as it gets the oil to the people that need it for free. Outside of that, I like what she's doing, because then you can make it so patients can just grow their own marijuana, because you're going to have other conditions that aren't these life debilitating or terminally or life-threatening conditions that you basically see a need where you have to fill the need. So another good thing going on in another country. And I think what you see is all around the world, you have a lot of good ideas around medical marijuana. And I think what I don't understand is, why don't we have somewhere where we just take all these good ideas and put them under one umbrella and run with it? Instead, you have legislative branches all over America trying to set up their medical marijuana program so that, obviously so rich people benefit. If you look at Arkansas, and then some of the stuff going on with Michigan's new laws, and then other places that are legislating for medical marijuana, they really are using the same exact language in all these laws. They got the 5 different marijuana facilities. Well, one's not a facility, one's the transporter. I think this is ridiculous. This is just like legislators writing laws just to include people that don't need to be involved in the business, or putting hands out for money that's being made that don't need to be out. Like when you have a medical marijuana program and you're like, oh, we have to give a bunch of money to the police for enforcement, and then we have to give money to the to education to educate people about drug addiction. No, you don't. That's got zero to do with medical marijuana. What the fuck does the police have to do with enforcing medical marijuana, man? It's stupid. Let's stop doing that right away. Let's consider it an industry like everything else. And when something goes wrong, someone breaks some rules, then they get fined and they lose their license or something. There's no fucking prison time or felonies. That's the whole point of making these reforms, is to stop throwing people in jail for fucking marijuana. So no, you don't need more money for enforcement. Speaking of enforcement, we have Canada finally talking about solid plans for legalizing marijuana in 2018. We've been hearing this for a while. You're probably getting deja vu by now. Well, let me read it for you. The campaign for national legalization of recreational marijuana took major steps forward in Canada last weekend after the government announced plans to introduce legislation. And also after the crackdown in Toronto and many other places, including the crackdown on cannabis culture and businesses formerly known as cannabis culture, otherwise known as Mark and Jody Emery's businesses, that keep getting focused on and hammered left and right. And now we have Mark and Jody Emery with felony charges, which is total horse shit. How the hell do you justify this, Justin Trudeau? And it's, we see what it is. You're seeing the same people that are the big corporate players in the medical marijuana industry in Canada who did this move where they at first they made home growing of medical marijuana just totally illegal. And they're like, what? And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, well, we're going to reel back on that because it didn't have the desired effect. The desired effect of that was for these guys to take over, and make it so nobody else could grow medical marijuana. But they were finding that overall, the police weren't about to get on board with this. They weren't about to just start going kicking indoors of patients growing their own marijuana. So they eased up on that, and it wasn't without a fight. I say we because we're the same no matter what country we're from. We're fighting for cannabis's normalization, and that's one of the ways you do it, is you join together and get rid of the idea that Canada's any different than us. They got the same shit going on just like they do in South Africa and just like they do in Jamaica, where they want to cut the Rastafarians out of the loop in Jamaica, or where in South America or South Africa, they just wanted to throw them in jail and focus on them. That guy got arrested 5 times. He had 5 court cases pending when he passed that law in South Africa. So, we know what's going on. All right. The big players in Canada, like Canopy and all these other medical marijuana operations, are trying to take over the recreational. And it's obvious. When you bust somebody like Mark Emery and close down his dispensaries, you're trying to prove a point. You're saying, hey, here's the biggest guy you guys got, the most well-known activist in the game, and we're going to focus on him. That's just saying, that's sending a message, clear message, that get out of our way. We're coming in with steamrollers to steamroll out the whole industry and set up shop with our rich investors. And Trudeau is left and right proven to be a corrupt piece of shit, in my opinion. My God. Look how many more fracking permits were allowed under him. Look how much more pipelines are laid down under him. If you're into environmental issues at all, you realize that when they put somebody like Trudeau or Obama in office, then you're paying attention to something else, or you're not paying attention at all. You're looking at his pretty smile, listening to his fancy rhetoric on his, neat little speeches or press releases or whatever. And it's putting people to sleep while they do all this crazy shit. But it's not getting by me, man. So the goal of this legislation, which is planned to be introduced next month, will be to fulfill a campaign promise made by the Liberal government to legalize cannabis by July 1st, 2018, following the recommendation of a marijuana task force led by former Deputy Prime Minister Anne McClellan. The following rules will be applied to cannabis regarding growth, ownership, and possession. The national age requirement to purchase cannabis will be set at 18, but provinces will be able to increase the age limit as they see fit. In addition to the age limit, provinces will control the price as well as the manner in which cannabis is bought and sold. The federal government will be in charge of licensing producers as well as regulating the supply of cannabis across the country. Let me say that again. The federal government will be in charge of the licensing producers as well as regulating the supply of cannabis around the country. A limit of 4 plants per household will be established for those who wish to grow their own recreational cannabis. So if you only can grow 4 plants, that's like really, anything more than 4 plants, I guess they say they'll be able to notice it, either through your electricity bill or just seeing obvious signs that you're growing weed or something. I don't know. Again, I don't see them just running through the neighborhoods and kicking doors in because people are growing too much weed. But whatever. The proposed timetable of the introduction of legislation comes almost exactly a year after the government initially created the widely publicized 1-year timetable of cannabis legalization and regulation. This issue of legalization, which has been widely debated between members of the Liberal and National Democratic parties, recently took center stage during the NDP leadership debate in Montreal. Citing the fact that the federal government has yet to keep its 2015 promise of recreational cannabis legalization, members of the NDP vying for the position of party leader suggest the Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is not truly committed to enacting this change. BC MP Peter Julian is one of those members. Quote, "I believe in legalization," Julian said during the second Democratic Party leadership debate. Quote, I do not believe Justin Trudeau is going to bring in the legalization of marijuana. And as proof of that, we are still seeing particularly young Canadians being criminalized by simple possession of marijuana. And let's not forget the crackdowns of the dispensaries, while proposed regulation and a timetable for enacting them would beg to differ from this position. The warnings issued from Trudeau recently seem to have support those with concerns. The Prime Minister referred to the timetable again recently when he said that the legislation would be introduced before the summer months, while at the same time making it clear that cannabis is in no way currently legal in Canada. And real quick, I'm going to show you those comments. This is actually from, 2016, December 17th, so this is really recent. Trudeau, who campaigned last year on a promise to end nearly a century of pot prohibition, warned that the government is still at least 1 year away from legalizing pot. Quote, "We haven't changed the legislation yet. It is coming, but we're going to take the time to do it right. In the meantime," he said, that the police are going to enforce the law. And boy, have they been enforcing the law. The raids and arrests have made even more recently on individuals and dispensaries in major Canadian cities breathed life into some of the concerns that many opponents have against the Liberal government's dedication to cannabis legalization. Trudeau has urged police to enforce the law when it comes to recreational cannabis, even with the pending legislation and legalization date moving closer. The promise we made our legalizing marijuana was done for two reasons. That is very, very clear about one. One, to better protect our kids from the easy access they seem to have right now to marijuana, and two, to remove the criminal elements that were profiting from marijuana. All you have to do is remove the criminal penalties and let people sell them in the proper setting where you can enforce this 18-year-old limit. And there you go. Both problems will be solved in one fell swoop. But, man, they don't want to hear this. They're just going to stonewall everybody with whatever talking points that the contributors or donors or whatever you want to call these corporate marijuana entities, they're feeding the talking points to these politicians and whatever. The raids are still happening on a regular, all right? We believe that a properly regulated, controlled system will achieve both of these measures, but we haven't brought in that properly regulated, controlled system because it's important that we do it right in order to achieve those specific goals. I'm so sick of the overabundance of caution being applied to marijuana legalization or normalization or medical marijuana or even decriminalization. Oh, decriminalize? We can't do that. Our police aren't ready for that yet. What are you talking about? Decriminalizing marijuana simply means your police don't have to worry about it. That's what we're telling you. Quit trying to define it as something more than that. Like, oh, if we legalize marijuana, we need more police so we can make sure everybody's doing it right. Shut the fuck up and just do it already. Especially you, Trudeau. What's the holdup? Why is this going to take until July of 2018? Can't you at least have a moratorium on these fucking raids? It's ridiculous. Since 2007, the DEA has taken $3.2 billion in cash from people without charging them with a crime. I'm not going to read this, but what it basically says is the DEA can come and kick your door in, take everything you got, and tell you to go talk to a judge if you want to get it back. Prove it's yours. Prove that you didn't use drug money to buy it. And yeah, $3.2 billion. That's over 10% of their overall funding. Like, I don't know, obviously, either we need to change this, man. These seizure laws, we have no Fourth Amendment. If nothing else, if we're not going to legalize marijuana fast enough, what in the hell? Can we at least get our Fourth Amendment back? Because when they do this marijuana crime, when they get you with a fucking joint, then there goes all your constitutional rights. Isn't anybody mad about this? You go to the airport and all of a sudden they just take all your shit. It's unbelievable. I don't know why I use that as an example, but you know this total doesn't even include the dollar value of other seized assets like cars, homes, electronics, clothing, your big bad rims, 24-inch rims. They don't even put that on the receipt. They're just talking about that cold hard cash that they take right out of people's hands, put it right in an evidence bag or something, and then tell you good luck getting it back. So yeah, just really quick, just in case you're not mad enough about marijuana laws, well, there's another reason to get pissed. They didn't even have warrants for these seized. They just, if they know you just got done doing a drug deal, instead of busting everybody and worrying about all that, they just take your money. They make it so your cost of doing business is super high. Maybe you'll just stop doing business. So I've talked about the Cannabis Caucus, and I've talked about some of the things they've done. So this is the most recent and most abundant thing, I guess you could call it. The most this is pretty much almost all inclusive. And I'm gonna fire up some Stardust. Whenever I smoke weed on the show, just know this: it's always mine. I always grow this. This is always stuff I've cultivated. Stardust is it's a Michigan strain. It's a 75% back cross of green crack and yeah, trichrome genetics out of Michigan. Cheers to them. But anyway, yeah, it's a 75% sativa that finishes really fast. So cheers to that. Cheers to this. U.S. lawmakers on Thursday introduced a package of marijuana reform bills aimed at protecting and preserving existing state-based programs while creating a framework for federal regulation of cannabis. Senator Ron Wyden, Democrat from Oregon, Earl Blumenauer, Democrat from Oregon, are standing there. That's them. They announced a path to marijuana reform, a bipartisan package of 3 related bills that address issues such as taxation, banking, civil forfeiture, descheduling, decriminalization, research, individual protections, and regulation. Including in the package is the reintroduction of the legislation from Representative Jared Powis from Colorado to regulate marijuana like alcohol. Actually, that is Powis right there on the left. I'm sorry. Yeah, I called him Wyden at first, but that's Powis on the left, and there you have Blumenauer on the right. This is the most comprehensive package yet that's been advanced, Blumenauer told The Cannabist. While other marijuana-related bills have been introduced to get at portions of the issue, this is an opportunity to have the big picture, he said. The path to marijuana reform includes the following bills according to the announcement from Wyman and Blumenauer. The Small Business Tax Equity Act. Create an exemption in the IRS Code, Section 280E, that would allow businesses compliant with the state laws to claim deductions and credits associated with the sale of marijuana. Currently under 280E, people and businesses cannot claim deductions or credits for the sale of Schedule 1 or Schedule 2 substances. Senator Rand Paul, Republican Kentucky, is a sponsor of Wyden's Senate bill, and Representative Carlos Curbelo, Republican from Florida, is sponsoring companion legislation in the House. So that's pretty nice. And it basically makes it so I don't know how we're going to work out with banks, but one of the things that cannabis businesses need to do is have the ability to be compliant with the Internal Revenue Service and the Internet Revenue Service too. I wish there was one. So the IRS has a code, and in the code there's a part of it that says if it's a Schedule One drug and you're making money off it, no, you don't get to make business deductions. So if you're running a business, you don't get to have depreciation on equipment or none of the costs of doing businesses that are tax deductible are allowed. And by the way, we can't pay the government taxes either, so it's like we're not even doing anything but black market almost, I guess. Reasonable. Here's one: responsibly addressing the Marijuana Policy Gap Act. Remove federal penalties and civil asset forfeiture for individuals and businesses complying with state law. Ensure access to banking, bankruptcy protection, research, and advertising. Expunge the criminal records for certain marijuana-related offenses, and requirement for residents of marijuana legal states to take a marijuana drug test for positions in federal civil service, and ease barriers for medical marijuana research. Wow, it's a big one. This is huge because it does so much. If this one really got in there and passed, that would be a big step in legalization. Like they said, lay the framework and the foundation. Let us do banking with banks. Let us get loans. Let us participate in the taxation system. And furthermore, the protections and protect us from drug tests. So if you say you're going to get rid of the drug tests for positions in federal civil services, so if you're talking about jobs that the federal government has for civilians, you're like, okay, you have to take a piss test to, be a forest ranger or whatever. This would say, no, you don't have to take well, you do, but it's not going to matter whether or not you have marijuana in there. Now, that's cool for federal employment or whatever, and you're like, well, what's that going to do to help anybody else? Whenever the federal government does stuff like that that affects federal employees, like raise the federal minimum wage or minimums for contract bids and stuff like that, all that stuff does is influences the state governments of states to do the same or something like almost the same. And then that trickles down to actual businesses on the ground. Because in order for them to retain good employees, they're competing with the federal and state government who are offering these better benefits. So it would be, stupid for them to be like, okay, you're only going to make $5 doing it here when the federal government's paying you 10 and the state government's paying you $7.50. So, it's kind of how it really is. So anyway, there's another one, Marijuana Revenue and Regulation Act. Remove marijuana from the Controlled Substances Act. Thank you. Let's do that. That's the most important thing out of all the things that the federal government, the Congress, or anybody in the government can do is just take that thing off of the Federal Controlled Substances Act and we can go from there, please. It would impose an excise tax regimen on marijuana products, allow for the permitting of marijuana businesses, and regulate marijuana in a manner similar to alcohol. Polis is sponsoring a portion of this legislation in the House, the Regulate Marijuana Like Alcohol Act. The legislation package is the latest in a series of marijuana law reforms put forth by federal legislator. Blumenauer and Polis launched the inaugural Congressional Cannabis Caucus earlier this year with Representative Dana Rohrabacher, California, Republican, and Representative Don Young, Republican from Alaska. And I would urge people to contact your Congress representatives and see if they'll join the Cannabis Caucus, especially if you live in a state where marijuana is legal medically or recreationally already, and you run a marijuana business. You better get on the phone and call your representative and tell them, why aren't you a part of this caucus? We need protection just in case Sessions comes back up out of his vampire coffin and starts biting people on the neck. So the bills will be tucked into larger legislation, allowing for the opportunity for a wide variety of people to be engaged, sign on to reform areas of interest, and suggest changes of their own. Quote, I am optimistic these are things that can happen. Maybe even this year, Blumenauer said. Wow, that's really optimistic. And I hope he's right. The sooner the better. And that's why I'm for some reason, I feel like if Hillary was president, none of this would be happening. Nothing would be happening in the way of legalizing marijuana. But because Trump got in and Sessions came out talking all that rhetoric, and then, you had Spicer talking that shit at the press conference, since all that, people are scrambling to pass marijuana reform all over the country, and it's great. But this stuff at the national level has been going on for a while. I mean, none of these bills are brand new. They all been floated before, and they're just buried or never made it to a committee, or never got out of committee, or just died before it even got to the floor. So who knows? There's a lot of these efforts, and I'm pretty optimistic too. So additionally, lawmakers say they plan to introduce Rauenbacher-Blumenauer medical marijuana amendment and the McClintock-Polis marijuana amendment. Those are spending bill riders that would prevent the Drug Enforcement Administration from using funds to prosecute individuals in medical marijuana states and recreational marijuana states, respectively. The path to marijuana reform was quickly lauded by pro-marijuana activists from organizations such as the National Organization for Reform of Marijuana Laws and the Marijuana Policy Project. Quote, this is common sense legislation that will eliminate the growing tension between federal and state marijuana laws. Robert Capecci, Director of Federal Policies for Marijuana Policy Project, said in a statement, voters and legislators are rolling back antiquated state marijuana prohibition policies, and it's time for Congress to step up at the federal level. States are adopting laws designed to improve public safety by replacing the illegal marijuana market with a tightly regulated system of production and sales. The federal government should be working to facilitate that transition, not hinder it. Opponents of marijuana legalization, however, express concern about the measures. Please, it's Kevin Sabat, the professional prohibitionist. He's always on the case. Here we have a situation where he's just kind of pissing in the wind. Kevin Sabat, former White House drug policy senior advisor who now had smart approaches to marijuana, a D.C.-based organization that opposes the legalization and commercialization of marijuana, told the Cannabis that expanding legalization would have negative consequences. Quote, while we don't want to see folks locked up or given criminal records for smoking pot, we support federal laws against marijuana. So that statement, Mr. Sabat, man, I would love to debate you, you fucking moron. This is just the kind of shit that I see you say, just, you get away with this shit. Carte blanche. Because no one's there to fucking tap you and be like, whoa, you just contradicted the fuck out of yourself, dude. What are you talking about? You don't want to see people locked up or given criminal records. Well, the federal laws are really the only reason why the states that are really still doing what you just said, locking people up and giving people criminal records, it's because of the federal law. If the federal law wasn't there, then they would have no excuse not to reform their own laws. So you're full of shit. And yeah, you do want to see people locked up, Kevin. I can see it in your eyes, man. You're a heartless, soulless piece of shit. You have no soul, Kevin Sabat. So he wrote in an email, we need to end, not expand, the special interest big marijuana lobby. That's another bullshit statement. Man, one after another. Here you go. Well, there is no such thing as a special interest big marijuana lobby. The only special interest in marijuana lobbyists is to get you and people like you the fuck out of our hair. All right? We're not interested in anything special or anything big like big marijuana. There's no big marijuana. The only thing big was tobacco. The only thing big is alcohol. Big alcohol, big tobacco, big pharma. Big pharma is who you are definitely the protector of big pharma. You're the biggest voice against marijuana because you basically are a shill for big pharma. So quit talking about this big marijuana lobby. It just doesn't exist. No, I mean, even the lobbyists that I've talked about before, they're the marijuana lobby, even the one where it's all the billionaire business owners of marijuana businesses that got together to put together a lobby to go to Congress and lobby for reform of these stupid marijuana laws. Even them, although they're big money people involved, they're not big marijuana dipshit. Like the guy that owns Fox Farm, which is a nutrients manufacturer. They make dirt and they make, soil fertilizers and maybe pesticides. Even that guy, who is a billionaire, has lobbying going on. He don't corner the market. There's still Miracle Grow. They're bigger than him. There's still other places that sell the same shit that he sells. He's not putting them out of business. Big marijuana is just a concept that you just keep using in your fucking stupid rhetoric that no one cares about anyway. You just sound like an idiot, man. Who do you think actually listens to you and fucking takes what you're saying seriously or believes a word you're saying? Nobody. All right, we can't ignore the fact that today's legalized marijuana and the accompanying industry is damaging to public health. That's false. Again, you have no studies to back that up. States that have legalized marijuana continue to see a black market for the drug, increased rates of youth drug use, false, continued high rates of alcohol sales, false, and interstate trafficking. Continued high rates of alcohol sales. What does that even have to do with marijuana? I don't get that. Continued high rates of alcohol sales. I don't get that, man. Why do you even care about that? And what does that got to do with marijuana legalization? And by the way, the statistics I've seen have shown that people in states that have legalized marijuana have actually seen a slight decrease in beer sales. I don't know if that's got anything to do with it, but whatever. If given the choice, more than half of the people asked, I think it was like 3/4 of the people asked, would rather have marijuana than alcohol, even if they consume both as a recreational consumer. But again, you're wrong on all counts. Yeah, states that have legalized marijuana might see some black market still for marijuana. That's always going to be a thing. And it's not really a big deal if it's just localized black market of people that are basically sharing their products with other people. Okay? And then you have increased rates of drug use, but you don't, And I'm about to do a story about that. Or no, that was last week. No, the studies came in. They studied a bunch of people in Washington and Colorado, and no, teen youth drug use in general does not go up; it goes down. All right, Sabat referenced a recent report out of Oregon that the state remains a hotspot for black market marijuana despite legalization efforts. You know what I have to say about that? Make your marijuana laws work for everyone, and don't have hard penalties, and the black market will go away if the prices are right. That's straight up. And if your medical marijuana and your recreational marijuana don't coexist very well together, and the medical marijuana starts to suffer, then the only thing you're going to see at dispensaries is garbage, because people are going to go to the people they know that manufacture good medicine. And that's all there is to it. So if you want to fix that problem, fucking complete illegalization and making marijuana more illegal is not going to fix that shit, Kevin. Are you fucking serious? We've tried that for more than 40 years. So let's debate, Kevin Sabat. Come on, you little fucking bitch. I'm so sick of you with this shit. Oh, man. Ultimately, marijuana legalization is all about making a small number of investors very rich, he said. Many of those trying to change these laws are taking money from the same special interest groups that put profits over public health. You're full of shit, Kevin. And the people that are trying to make marijuana not legal, the people that are fighting it, are those people like the big pharma and the alcohol lobby and the private prison lobby. Even the prison food providers put money against marijuana being legal. Even Discount Tire, I don't know what the fuck he's got in it, but and Publix in Florida, a pharmacy chain. Those are the people, the big money and special interests that want marijuana to be illegal. And not to mention people that are big-time cartel bosses. They want marijuana illegal because guess what? Back in the day, before all these states started legalizing and before medical marijuana was legalized, that was 60% or more of the revenue of these cartels in Mexico that we always hear about. And not only that, but if you've heard about El Chapo, read his story sometime. It was because of marijuana prohibition in America is why he started out. It's how he became who he was today. So you're full of shit, Kevin Sabat, and I urge you to fucking debate me. You are a worthless cause. Like, whatever you're trying to do it's not going anywhere. You're just out there looking like a complete idiot. All right, that was Alicia Wallace again. It seems like I'm running into your story or your articles more and more. Up and comer in this medical marijuana and marijuana advocacy and getting the word out, the writing. So, hey, thank you for joining the club and keep up the good work. All right, I'm going to take this opportunity to ask my audience, what little bit of an audience I have. But we're growing. We're growing, and these podcasts are getting watched, I guess. Maybe, I don't know. It seems like a lot of people like the longer stuff that you put on YouTube, so I like it too. You can just put it on in the background while you do whatever else you do to occupy your time. But right now we have all these marijuana new laws hitting the floor in the federal Congress and stuff. And, there's a lot of congressmen out there that are still maybe in the dark, don't know that this is even going on. Maybe they just don't like this or whatever. They need a little bit of a prodding. It's never been the most, shall I say, popular issue before, even now that it is the most popular issue or one of them. It's definitely on the top 5 list, I would think. It's even more popular than war, and we're in like 7 or 8 wars right now. Like, how does that work out? But anyway, there's a little petition I would like everybody to check into, and I'll put the link in the description below. But yeah, go ahead and take a couple minutes out of your day and go on over to this petition right here to tell your Congress to respect state marijuana laws. I already filled it out with a couple of different email addresses, so I can't do it again. But basically, you get it filled out. It'll tell you where we are in it. I think this one's going pretty good so far, but I don't know. Don't quote me. But that's one of the ones. But this one was one that I'm passing along from a friend. So let's get it done. Tell your representatives that we need them on board with this. Especially states, like I said before, that have already have medical and recreational marijuana laws. You know who you are. If your representative isn't involved in this, or all your representatives that you have available to you, get them involved. Tap them on the shoulder. Tell them that we need them on board too. All right. So now we have one of the most absurd things I've seen in, I don't even know what, in the government's actions in the drug war or drug reform or whatever you want to call it. This is just crackpot bullshit right here. So we have Senator Dianne Feinstein, not one of my favorite Democrats. In fact, this is an example of a Democrat that should be a Republican. Right, this lady has never been for marijuana legalization. She's not even for medical marijuana, as far as I know. And she's from California. Senator from California. How she's held on to power this long has to be based in corruption. Everything about this woman is just basically corrupt bullshit. So on Tuesday, Senator Feinstein introduced a bill that would increase criminal penalties for drug dealers who alter substances in an effort to entice children. How do you know that that's even happening? That is such bullshit. So, however, the measure is raising concern from critics who say the issue is less than pressing and that the bill could result in misdirected penalties. She tweeted this shit. There are many instances of drug dealers altering flavor and packaging of cocaine, methamphetamines to appeal to children. And when, if you go to this tweet and look at it, my God. it's just bombarded with hundreds. Oh no, it didn't go right to it. Well, here it is. I don't see the first part of this though. Oh, here we go. Now look, if you look at this tweet, it got hammered. All these comments, there's a couple by me, hundreds of comments, hundreds of people chiming in. And it's all just the same old, huh? You know, you got people questioning, like, you know, first of all, you had Snopes saying this is bullshit, and a couple other fact checkers or people just writing articles. Now you got the real shit is this kind of shit. Grape flavored cough syrup for children. Tell me what's marketed to children again. How about typical drugs that are on the market right now, like Adderall, tastes like candy, in case you didn't ever try that. And they literally have like orange flavored methadone and stuff like that. Yeah, the comments they range from funny to serious to like, this isn't a real thing, you know, this is totally not real. Now, what about candy itself? Sugar is a drug. Don't they market that to children? And can it kill you? Candy literally can kill you. It can cause diabetes. It can also just lead to really bad things. You can go down this thing for hours, man. There is literally thousands of comments on this tweet, and not a single one of them has anything to do with that. And I even had this one person trying to come at me like, oh, I say that they do lace the cocaine and meth with strawberry and cherry flavors. That's bullshit. Now, the only time you would have to lace those kind of drugs with flavors is if your drugs are bullshit and they're fake and there's some kind of cut in there that makes it taste like something gross. What's this thing really about? All right, so there are many instances of drug dealers altering flavors. Yeah, we already read that. Our bill gives law enforcement new tools to prosecute drug dealers who target children with flavored drugs. No, it doesn't. Your law is just a smokescreen for people. Well, we'll see. Let's see. The bill, which mandates 10 to 20-year sentences for dealers who knew or had reasonable cause to believe that modified controlled substances would be distributed to a minor. This is so stupid, man. Nobody believes that you take cocaine and add flavoring to it. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard about. And what about this thing about marketing drugs to minors? Less than 4% of 12th graders in the U.S. used cocaine in 2016, and less than 2% use meth, according to the latest survey from the National Institute on Drug Abuse. Apparently, the NIDA didn't include in that statistic the amount of kids that are prescribed Adderall. And when it comes to cocaine, whatever, you know, the kids given opiates will just replace cocaine with opiates, even though they're nothing like each other. But when it comes to legally prescribed drugs, that's the kids that are dying out there, not people in any other way, shape, or form. All right, here's a cool quote. This reminds me of the horror stories that you hear every Halloween where you have people handing out these infused products to children. Daniel Short, an attorney who focused on cannabis law at the firm Harris Bricken, told ATN, there's really no data supporting that had happened. Ever. Never. It never happened. No one's going to take a marijuana and bunch of infused treats and just start passing them out to kids on Halloween. Are you fucking kidding me? I have seen no data to show me that it is something that's happening at an alarming rate or to the extent where we need to have a specific law to address candied-flavored drugs when there are already increased penalties for distributing to a minor as it is. And of course the bill could disproportionately impact marijuana dealers on the black market and possibly dispensaries in legal states. Let me just say before I read this that all the places where marijuana is legal for medical or other reasons have rules in place for medical marijuana edibles to not look attractive to children and to not have over the top, I don't know, well, let's see, when you combine marijuana with candy and you got marijuana infused candy, that's legal in all these states. Well, in California, she's trying to make it so it ain't. In California, it already is. Medical marijuana already, you can go buy Fruit Loops with marijuana in it, Skittles, Reese's peanut butter cups. Sometimes the names are altered, obviously, so it looks like, so it's kind of a play on words. Packaging could range from, it might look attractive to a kid or not. And you know what the problem I have with that is who says that just because something is attractive to a minor doesn't mean that that's also attractive to an adult? Huh? What about that? What about medical marijuana? Who says that people that use medical marijuana are always adults? Maybe you want to make something attractive to a young kid, little kid with seizures or something to make it funner. I don't even know. It doesn't make sense to actually tell people how to make their products. Is that the government's job, is to micromanage people's products? We don't think it looks appropriate. Who cares? First of all, none of these products are offered to children for sale in states where it's legal. So what the fuck is it worried about you? You already have someone breaking the law by providing these products to children or letting children have access to them because of their carelessness. So what are you trying to make it even more of a thing for? It's just ridiculous. So the text of the bill states that if it would apply to people who sell federally illegal drugs to minors that are, okay, so that already throws all of California medical makers under the bus right off the bat by saying federally illegal drugs. So if you sell a federally illegal marijuana infused edible to a minor, you're already breaking this new law, and you could look at 10 years in prison for it. You're saying, well, what if the minor has a medical marijuana card? That don't fucking matter. Not according to this thing I just read. All right, so you have sold something to a minor that was combined with a beverage or a candy product. This is one of those Schedule I drugs. Marketed or packaged to appear similar to a beverage or candy product. Now, like I said, that's a whole bunch of products already that I've seen coming out of California, or modified by flavoring or coloring to appear similar to a candy or beverage product. Man, who cares? Now you're trying to tell me that I can't have Skittles or gummy bears. If I do, they all got to be one color or something. What is that even? Flavoring or coloring? Again, you're throwing all the marijuana edible people right under the bus, because every fucking product that they're making looks like something that already is. That's how what are you trying to do, man? Make people reinvent the fucking wheel? I don't know. It's really ridiculous. This is just, it's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. And here's the bill right here. Some finer points. This bill will provide law enforcement with new tools to prosecute drug dealers who target youth with candied or flavored drugs that can put them at greater risk of developing a lifelong addiction or even deadly overdose. Quote, cynical criminals take advantage of drug trends in general population to market dangerous illicit drugs specifically to kids, Chuck Grassley said. It could be marijuana, bingo, methamphetamine, cocaine, or something else. Now, the reason that he even mentioned methamphetamine or cocaine, which is a weird choice, like I would have mentioned like ecstasy or LSD or something that sounds like that they've already done it. Like you've seen LSD and gummy bears and sugar cubes and shit. Methamphetamine, you can basically churn methamphetamine into liquid and put it in any fucking thing you want. I've seen people with methamphetamine pixie straws or whatever. Methamphetamine suckers and shit are a big hit at rave parties, or were back in the 90s. I don't know anymore. I don't go to rave parties too often. But even when I did, I'll tell you this, those products that I just mentioned, the pixie sticks and the suckers and all that shit, even the marijuana brownies and gummy bears, none of this shit that I've ever seen is ever attempted to be sold to minors or was made because it's more attractive to minors. People just make that shit and put that shit together like that because it's an easy way to be a drug dealer. Like, okay, I got gummy bears. You want one? It's $5. I mean, it could be that simple all the way to it's just a funny kind of thing to do because you're at the rave party. I don't know. But to say that, they're packaging this shit up and then, make it look like gummy bears and then we're going to go to the high school or the middle school and the kids are going to be like, oh yeah, I want to buy them gummy bears. Well, these gummy bears cost $5 a piece, kid. Oh, really? Well, damn, that's pretty expensive. Why? Oh, because they have drugs. And I mean, what the fuck are you talking about, man? Are you saying that they just give the drugs away? Because that's bullshit too. Anyway, you get 10 years for your first offense. Wow. Is that on top of all the other shit that you're going to get for selling some fucking illegal narcotics to a fucking minor? Come on, man. All right. Once again, you have Chuck Grassley, who is a shitbagger all day and night. He comes, I don't know. Never mind. I'm not going to talk about these politicians. You can look them up on your own and make your own opinions, form your own opinions about them. But that law, totally unnecessary. While we're looking at reforming laws and making it so we have less people going to prison for nonviolent drug offenders, your asses are working to lock people up for longer for shit that ain't even a fucking thing. So fuck you. Go back to the drawing board and make some reforms that work for people. Because you know why? Public support for marijuana legalization surged in 2016. As you've seen right here, this like boom, boom, that's considered a surge. Whereas this right here, this Republican line here, or no, it's not a Republican line. That's age 50 through 64, yes. And then, yeah, see that's a level off. And then Republican, that's a level off. When they say a level off, that means that this might go up a little bit more, but it's pretty much going to stay the same at 40%. And that's Republican support for legalizing marijuana. Wow. That's really like this whole spike here had a little dip there, but this, this trend right here for even Republicans is amazing because that's one constituency of voters that I didn't think you'd see. Now, if you take the Republicans and then the ages 65 plus and put them together, that's probably the brunt of that support. And then you got your libertarians and independents. They're mixed in with this gray line of independents. Right-wing independents or libertarians or whatever you want to call yourselves. Roughly, it's just a sign that these trends don't go back the other way. You might see a little fall here and there, and I don't know if that's because of there's different factors that apply to that. Maybe I don't know, but one thing you won't see is you'll never see the overall support for legalizing marijuana. You'll never see this thing going back down the other way from here on out. You know why? Because there's no disaster that happens when you legalize marijuana. There's no like public health effects. Like you always hear about these prohibitionists talking about, oh, they never talk about the public health damage that's going to be done if you legalize marijuana, blah, 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 blah. Well, that's because there really isn't nothing. When you talk about alcohol, you're talking about like upwards of 100,000 people a year are dying from either direct death from alcohol consumption or crashing their cars into something while they're drunk or some other long-term effect of alcohol taking its toll on them. I mean, no one talks about cigarettes. 400,000 people a year are dying and die from cigarettes. And not, the ones that die, that's the easy number to just blow off. You want to know about the ones that are dying? Why don't you go to the hospital and ask them if you can get a guided tour of the cancer department? All right? You want to know what nicotine is all about? That's what nicotine's all about. If you ask what the public support for legalizing nicotine or whatever you want to call it or allowing, like if you could say, hey man, if we never would have ever had cigarettes before, is that a good thing or a bad thing? People that say that's a good thing is at an all-time high, and it's never going to go the other way because people know it's a killer. Same with alcohol. You know, we had a time when we prohibited alcohol, and then we changed it back so it wasn't prohibited. And nobody said at the outset, well, what about the damn social ills that come with alcohol, the public health crisis that's going to be caused? No one said that shit, but we have it every day. We have it. We have car crashes all over town. We have just alcohol is just that drug. You know, when people get on it, they get all stupid and drunk and fucking fight, cause problems. There's so many problems that are caused from alcohol. Social ills, like you got people missing work all the time from hangovers. You got people at work drunk, fucking shit up. I mean, it's just a never-ending list of shit. And they want you to think that that's what marijuana is, too. Oh, if we legalize marijuana, all this shit's going to happen. It's going to be a shitstorm. Well, I'm here to tell you that Colorado is here to tell you, and so is Washington and other places, is here to tell you that that is not the case. Marijuana is not that drug. So quit telling people and acting like you know what's going to happen. The slippery slope right-wing shit where, oh, if we do this, this is going to happen. It's going to be terrible. Well, I'm going to tell you that let's do it the other way around. Let's say if this happens, good shit's going to happen. Well, if you legalize marijuana, no one goes to jail for the shit. That's a huge good thing. And there ain't no drugged driving going increases. There ain't no, gateway this or teen use that. All their bullshit propaganda is just destroyed with statistics. Has been for the last 50 years. Every time they come up with something, the statistics prove it wrong immediately, but they still use it. And they use anecdotal evidence all the time to scare you. And then there's the church. Like I always said, the biggest enemy for legalized marijuana is the right-wing religious outfits. And I'm not just talking about you Muslims. I'm talking about you Christians and the Jewish faith. Whatever, all these religious people, the more religious they are, the stricter they are to their religion, the more they demonize marijuana. So now you have Reverend Joe Godfrey, Alabama's point man when it comes to lobbying against sin. If marijuana supporters ever launch a significant legalization effort in the state, Godfrey will likely be the face of opposition. Godfrey hopes it doesn't come to that. Quote, they always want to tout the jobs and revenue, he said of marijuana supporters. They never want to tout the social costs. That's because, like I said, dumbass, there ain't no social costs. And this guy, when they always say this shit too, oh, they don't want to tout the social costs. Now, if you had some social costs, you would be like, and they don't want to talk about the social costs like A, B, C, and D. They don't have those because there is none. They don't want to be like, oh, the social costs like drunk driving is going to cause crashes and husbands are going to beat up their wife and kids when they're all drunk and shit. Oh, yeah, that's all alcohol. They're going to be so caught up in the grip of addiction that they, sell all their possessions and end up going to the streets and to get hooked on heroin. Oh, yeah, that's opioids. I'm sorry, that's not marijuana. So your social cost thing is bullshit. It's a non-starter there, Godfrey. Godfrey serves as executive director of the Alabama Citizens Action Program, an interfaith ministry and lobbying group funded by the state's Southern Baptists to promote their stance on issues such as alcohol and gambling. ALCAP has stood against alcohol sales and the legalization of gambling for decades. It also opposes the legalization of marijuana. Good old-fashioned bootlegging, moonshining, sounding motherfuckers, man, from the foothills of Alabama. Good deal. You guys are going on. You're on your way out. The whole country is way out of this ahead of you. Alabama's definitely going to be the last place you see marijuana legalization. All right, as far as a claim that marijuana is okay. Oh, wait, yeah. Some proponents of marijuana legalization argue that since marijuana is a plant God created it, it's not a sin to use. To further that, there's a thing in Genesis that talks about God gave you all the seed-bearing plants to do whatever you want with it. Use them all, he said. All right. Now, Godfrey's like, our bodies are temples. And he says that poison ivy and poison oak is a plant that God gave us, but we don't roll in it. We don't have to. Those plants are for other purposes. And if you don't need to use a plant, then you don't have to. Godfrey points to a key verse for Christians, 1 Corinthians 6:19. Do you not know that your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit who is in you, whom you have received from God? You are not your own. Oh, that is just ridiculous. All right, I'm not with the Bible either, and I'm totally not with, taking the Bible literally. You can't. All right. Now, these people always like to nitpick the Bible, and then they'll take one thing and, this is what the Bible says, but in the same damn book, they'll have things that they can't say, like wearing 2 different kinds of cloth on your outfit or shaving your beard if you're a man. That's, you can't have a tattoo either, and it's all kinds of shit. The Bible's just full of that, and especially the Old Testament. And these people will always say the same thing. Oh, well, the Old Testament, blah, blah, blah. Well, no, you take the Bible literally and you use it literally all the time. So, no, you can't do that. You can't just use it when it's appropriate and nitpick the parts out of it that support your argument. And, I can do the same thing with marijuana and any other thing that you think is something the Bible is against. So take that shit and leave it in the church, get it away from the state, all right? The Bible makes it very clear that we are to be sober-minded, Godfrey said. That's part of its meaning. It means thinking clearly, thinking straight. When you use any kind of mind-altering and addictive drug, you are at risk of making bad decisions, doing things that are not right. In other words, you might actually have some critical thinking that might even lead you to the idea that this whole Bible thing is a bunch of horse shit. So it lowers people's inhibition like alcohol does. That's not true. And I hate this, how people always use alcohol to compare with marijuana. Not true. You cannot take alcohol and use it as a comparison device for marijuana in any way, shape, or form, because alcohol is just simply way more dangerous, way more addictive. It's toxic and deadly, and it does cause inhibitions because it fucks you up. When you drink alcohol, it totally makes your mind not your mind anymore. That's called getting fucked up there, Reverend, or whatever the fuck you are. When you get fucked up and you can't think straight, you ain't doing things right, you're not making good decisions. That's alcohol, not marijuana, and it doesn't lower inhibitions. Inhibitions, for one thing, aren't even a thing. That's just, all right, so inhibitions are basically being sober from alcohol. You have inhibitions. That's it. You tell me what else lowers your inhibitions. A gun to your head might do it. Other than that, pretty much just alcohol is the only thing I can think of that lowers your inhibitions. Other drugs, you're just too doped out to do anything. Marijuana, you can think about what you're doing. All right, roofies might lower a person's inhibitions because they don't have any fucking control of their faculties. It's irritating to hear people that still want to push these stupid narratives and then like alcohol. No, it's not like alcohol. That shows that you're an ignorant person that don't know what you're talking about. We are not to put things into our bodies that make our minds foggy or unclear. That would be alcohol, all right? If you want to go on your high horse about alcohol, go ahead. They trace their roots back to 1937 when a group of Baptists, Methodists, and Presbyterians gathered to form an interdenominational temperance group. They met at the First United Methodist Church in Birmingham and organized the Alabama Temperance Alliance. So stupid. The Reverend Earl Hatelin, a Methodist minister, was the first director and served from 1937 to 1946. The Alabama Temperance Alliance changed its name to the Alabama Council on Alcohol Problems in 1968. How's that working out for you guys? Not very well, is it? You don't have a whole lot of people there like, oh, yay, we're against alcohol. So now you got to change your flavor once again and be against something else. Why don't you just, what would be good for a church type thing? Be for something. Be for people getting better. Be for people getting clean from opioids. or whatever. Instead of all this being anti-shit, it's making you guys just look like a bunch of old crotchety dicks. Godfrey took over this shit in 2008. In 2010, ALCAP became a 501c4 organization, established to lobby the Alabama legislator on behalf of the faith community. What do they lobby for? Godfrey is opposed to the medical. He's also opposed to the medicinal uses of marijuana. So anyway, they lobby. Their concerns are alcohol, tobacco, and other drug issues, gambling, pornography, other promiscuous behavior, and addressing the sanctity of human life, which I assume is to tell women that they don't have a choice what to do with their own bodies and essentially be anti-abortion in every way, shape, or form, which is a totally separate issue that I don't really get into other political issues too much when I make videos, but I will say that I am pro-life, I'm pro-life, of course. Everybody's pro-life. Nobody's pro-death, but to be anti-abortion pro-life is totally a misnomer. All right, they're not pro-life. They're anti-women being able to choose what to do with their own body. There should be no situation, unless you're talking about somebody that had plenty of time to make this decision and is almost ready to have the baby, and you have a fully developed baby in there, then that's, it's not up to the state. It just ain't. It's just not a government function to make health decisions for people. It isn't. The Republicans always want to talk about that with health care. Well, we're not talking about the government making decisions. We're just talking about them guaranteeing that if I need to go to the doctor, I can do that. So, all right, I'm getting kind of off into the weeds on these other issues because the church really just pushes buttons. That's what this guy's out there doing. He just wants to push buttons, and these are the topics that he's pushing the buttons on. Godfrey has also opposed the medical use of marijuana. Of course he has, which puts him at odds with Alabama's two cannabinoid oil laws known as Lenny's Law and Carley's Law. Now, a lot of people call the cannabinoids cannabinoids. That's fine. I'm just going to keep calling it what I've always called it since I was a little kid. Cannabinoid. I like that better anyway. Cannabinoid sounds like some kind of a insect or something. In 2016, Alabama passed Lenny's Law, allowing patients who suffer seizure disorders or other debilitating medical conditions to use a product that comes from the marijuana plant. The law decriminalized cannabidiol, derived from cannabis, for those with certain medical conditions in Alabama. That would be CBD. Cannabidiol. CBD is a good drug, of course, for the seizures and all that, but we learned that CBD alone isn't enough. THC is also needed as a curative. Definitely people with the seizures end up having a lot less seizures and sometimes no seizures at all. But that's a whole nother subject again, and I've already been drifting a lot on this. All right, the law expanded on Carley's Law passed in 2014 to authorize UAB study on cannabidiol to treat seizure disorders. When Godfrey spoke out against those laws, he found out how emotional the issue can be. Quote, "There was an attempt to bully me on social media," he said. I had a story about that later on. Yes, I still do. You don't want to go on the internet with propaganda and prohibition, because the internet is basically the collective conscious of the fucking earth, all right? And in that collective conscious, we have long ago kicked out you douchebags with your fucking stupid bullshit that has no facts to back it up, including the very idea of a fucking God and a Christian religion or a religion in general. Now, I might go out there and say that I don't believe that there is a God, but one thing I definitely will say is that there's definitely no Christian God or this Jesus thing or Allah or any of the... If there is a God, which I'm pretty 100% sure there's not, there definitely isn't any of those, or Hare Krishna, or, any of that. Why? Because it's all man-made religious stuff that's written down. I mean, You can't be, none of this stuff has real origin in history. If you look at real history, what it does is that these three competing religions that are the top three religions of the day have always been the three competing religions that were the top three religions of the day ever since each one was founded. They were competing with basically all the other religions at the time when they got created individually, to the point where all three existed. And then you have, it's the same thing going on today, man. All right. And okay, so let's pretend like you believe in one of these religions. I'm not going to get into this religious thing for very much, but I know people are going to be like mad as hell because I said all this. I'm not going to say that I'm against the people in the religion. I have no problem with them people. It's the religions themselves. Like when people say, Islam is a peaceful religion. I don't see how you can say that. It's the only one where you can get your head cut off if you don't follow the rules. And you say, well, that's not all of Muslims. It's not all of Islam. Well, but it is. If you look at Saudi Arabia, that's where I would say the dream of a caliphate, like you hear ISIS talking about. Well, that's what Saudi Arabia already is. And if you look at what they do and how they handle Sharia law being law, that's what they thrive for, all right? Now, can you have that mixed in a place like America? Will they be America? Will it work out? Well, we have this place called Dearborn in Michigan, in case you didn't notice. And it's a pretty big enclave of Islam. And I've met people from all Middle Eastern countries in Dearborn, and I would say that all of them are very peaceful and God-loving people. So yeah, you can have that coexist with other things, you know. It's not like just because they pop up in America, all of a sudden, like these right-wingers talk about, oh, they're going to take over and bring Sharia law to America. Like, oh, come on, man. That's never going to happen. In the Middle East, they're having a hard enough time making it happen there, you know. Like if it wasn't for America, you would have places like Iran, which used to be a secular country, and Syria, which used to be a secular country. We came along, we installed dictators, and the same thing we did in South America, we did in the Middle East. Ever since the 1950s, ever since the CIA was born, this is all like, you know, common knowledge now. It used to be like, oh, no, you can't talk about that, or it was a conspiracy theory. No, we really did. The guy's name was Mossadegh. The CIA had these death squads over there that framed him up for a bunch of terrorist attacks. And next thing you know it, you had the people was against Mossadegh and the revolution group that came in to sweep in and take over. And then guess what it was? It was a dictatorship. And then what'd they do next? They installed the Shah. So come on, man. I don't know where I even got onto all this, but the church has definitely always been the number one enemy of marijuana legalization and normalization. Godfrey describes marijuana use as a domino in the sequence of delinquency for the youth. And this is, like I said, when you smoke marijuana, it makes you question things like authority and religion and all that stuff. Well, when you do that, keep in mind that they know you're doing that, and that's why they hate it. Marijuana is without question a gateway drug, Godfrey said. People who use marijuana are more likely to move on to harder drugs. The same with alcohol. It's an incremental step. Kids who start smoking cigarettes move to alcohol, and pretty soon marijuana. And then the harder drugs. When you get used to one, you have much more to... Whatever, man. Marijuana is not a gateway drug. We already know that. And then he's saying that marijuana is addictive, but you know, we know that it's not even as addictive as caffeine. So whatever, dude. You know, just like I said, keep your propaganda and your old time rhetoric at home. The internet is full of skeptics, and we have one thing that you don't. We have facts to back up our arguments. When you say marijuana is addictive, we're like, it's almost like a common sense, like, what? Are you kidding me? Slap, slap, slap. Where you been hiding? Under a rock? Under a church? Who knows? So at its heart, the use of marijuana and other drugs is indicative of a spiritual problem, Godfrey said. Bingo. Is that what I've been talking about all along? I made a video called, Does Jesus want to arrest you for marijuana in Arizona? Because all these church groups got together, like this one did in Alabama. Well, they got together over in Arizona, same reason, to pool their resources together and fight legalization at all costs. And they had the same thing to say about it. People are looking for something in life that will be an escape, he said, instead of looking to the God who created us and his son, Jesus Christ. People are looking for other solutions. People have lost confidence in the Bible as the Word of God. If you dismiss the Word of God as not relevant, you have no moral foundation to build your life on. Oh, I have so much to say about that. But since that's not my wheelhouse, you can just go ahead and look that up. Search for that in YouTube, and there's hours and hours of debate on that. And then the atheists always win this debate. You do not need God to have morals. That is just, it's the most absurd thing I've ever heard of. Why? Because I go by the golden rule, which a lot of these people that claim to be big-time Christians, or they go to church all the time and they criticize other people that don't, criticize other people for everything else, which is against the Bible, by the way, being judgy. But anyway, it's the same thing there, man. You don't need it. You just need the golden rule. Treat others how you want to be treated. That's morally sufficient. That's pretty much morally sufficient. That's all you need. When you have no moral foundation, chaos results. I don't know, man. I think this is just absurd. It's every man doing for himself what he feels right, and it says in the book of Judges, as it says in the book of Judges. If you dismiss the word of God as not relevant, you have no moral foundation to build your life on. When I read this, it doesn't make any sense to me. I'm trying to see what he's even saying, but it doesn't make a bit of sense. What he's really saying that is, if you smoke marijuana, you might decide that the Bible is a book full of fairy tales, and that sounds more reasonable. All right, now we're on to West Virginia, where the Senate there has passed a medical marijuana bill on to the House. West Virginia Senate passed a bill on Wednesday that would permit marijuana to be used for medical purposes in West Virginia. West Virginia is doing a lot of cool stuff lately, I guess. Senate Bill 386, sponsored by Senate Richard Ojeda, a Democrat from Logan, would create West Virginia Medical Cannabis Commission, a group of lawyers, medical professionals, members of the public, and agricultural officials who would oversee regulation of medical marijuana in the state. I've not felt this good since the day my oncologist said I was in remission. That would be Rusty Williams of the Nitro area, who immediately burst into tears when he saw that the bill had passed 28-6. The bill goes on to the House of Delegates for further consideration. During a break Wednesday, Ojeda acknowledged the bill could face more resistance there. I know people are saying the speaker won't run it. He said, you know what? It's time. It's time for our state to open up our eyes and our minds and realize, if it's a gateway drug, you know that it is. It's a gateway out of opioid addiction, and it's a gateway for people to have a better life that only have a small little bit of life left. Jared Hunt, spokesman for the House of Delegates, has said if the bill were sent over, Speaker of the House Tim Armstead, a Republican from Kanawha, would gauge interest from the caucus and speak to other members of leadership. Ojeda has argued the bill could help alleviate symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder among West Virginia veterans. On my desk right here, there's 13 dog tags, he said, gesturing. We can't help them. They died in combat, but we may be able to help those that see them when they close their eyes. We have thousands of veterans from the state that have seen things I pray you or your children never have to see, he added during a floor speech in support of the bill. Quote, I've got a dog tag here, and I can remember telling his wife Her husband is not coming home to see the birth of their first son because she was 8 months pregnant when he was killed overseas. Background checks would be required for basically anyone involved in the system. Senator Charles Trump, Republican from Morgan, and Senate Judiciary Chairman said during a floor discussion Wednesday. Now, the bill, which is basically kind of restrictive, I'm not going to get into the details of this bill because it's still just, it's kind of out there right now. But there was some attempts to change it, an amendment stating that anyone, or wait, the first amendment was first suggested by Robert Carnes, Republican from Upshur, would allow people with prescriptions to grow 2 plants of their own. That remains in the bill. A discussion Wednesday evening, Trump offered an amendment stating that anyone who knowingly distributes, possesses, with intent to distribute or manufactures cannabis that has been diverted from patient, dispenser, or caregiver is guilty of a felony, punishable by 1 to 5 years and or a fine of up to $10,000. The amendment was adopted. And again, I don't like these stiff penalties for people involved in medical marijuana. It doesn't make any sense. If you're trying to say that this person's doing criminal activities, find out what he's doing that's criminal, give him charges for that. I mean, you're obviously saying he's stealing the marijuana from patients and such, then charge him with that, man. Sounds like you already have a felony. Senator Ron Stallings, Democrat from Boone, also moved to amend the bill so that the drug screening tests no longer include a report on the level of THC. The amendment failed. Well, that you guys are a little behind. You can't go just straight for that yet. You got to at least pass some things along the way that make it so there's a reason why there is THC in your blood. Then you had this physician who urged support. Quote, I have patients that won't even come to me now because they're breaking the law and using marijuana, he said. Not only that, but you get a lot of people that if you're a doctor and your patient's not telling you that they use marijuana, there could be a lot of problems with that. What problems may you might wonder, am I thinking of? I don't know. But if you're a doctor and your patient's not telling you everything, yeah, your doctor's going to be pretty mad about it. All right, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but there was some opposition. I'm not, here's the names of them right here. And yeah, don't vote for them next time you go to vote, people in West Virginia. And this guy said he couldn't vote for a bill as a pulmonary physician. I don't know what that even means. So he's for heart and cardiovascular. Pulmonary, I believe, is heart and lung function. So why not? I don't know what he's thinking. Maybe he thinks that this is about smoking weed or something, but whatever. He also said he has heard from doctors who say, quote, if you're going to legalize it, don't put us in the middle of it. And I've heard this from state after state that try to do legalize medical marijuana legislatively or otherwise, or make rules for medical marijuana. You always get these doctors who say, oh, I'm not going to participate in that, or if you make the rules like this and that, then I'm not going to participate in it. And they kind of use like their whole like their whole guild, the whole like physicians guild, as some kind of a leveraging tool against the legalization of medical marijuana. Well, guess what, guys? You guys are in the minority. There's very few doctors out there that will sit there and argue that marijuana is not medicine. And those very few doctors out there that'll do that is because they're getting paid very nicely to go out there and to do that. They don't have any backup, any kind of evidence to prove their point. And they're just full of shit. And if a doctor's too lazy to get updated information, I mean, maybe they're saying, well, the science isn't in yet. We don't have enough studies, this and that. Guess what, guys? There is studies out there. The science is in. The science is the endocannabinoid system. How can you say that's not a thing? You have CB1 and CB2 receptors in soft and hard tissue all throughout the body, all the way down to blood drops. And they need cannabinoids, as you will see in a story I'm about to do later. All right. Vermont delays votes on legalizing marijuana. That's what the House delayed. They delayed a vote that would legalize marijuana by basically kicking it into this like side thing. So Representative Chip Conquest, Democrat from Newbury, presented the legalization bill on the floor of the House and argued it was time for Vermont to examine cultural assumptions about marijuana. Quote, continuing to prohibit the personal use of a substance that poses little threat to public safety and objectively less overall risk than other legal substances is antithetical to a free society. I would have used the word antipodal maybe there, but whatever. Which must, to remain free, have a rational justification for infringing on the freedom of its citizens. Great point. You know what? I'm surprised that wasn't a Republican. How come Republicans never make that point? This is about personal freedom, guys. And yeah, Democrats can be for personal freedom. So, hey, Democrats, why don't more of you take that position? Personal freedom is not a partisan issue. All right, it's an American trait. We're supposed to be the land of the fucking free. How can you be the land of the free when you lock somebody up in a cage for fucking using a plant? That doesn't make any goddamn sense at all. Is there anyone that can justify that for argument? How that's supposed to be something in a free society? How that's supposed to exist? Prohibition should never exist in a free society. So House 170 would legalize possession of 1 ounce or less. I knew this was going to happen. Anyway, all right, I'll try to get through this real quick. We're only talking about this possession of 1 ounce or less would be legal, as well as growing, I think, where is it? It says several plants here, but I think they were talking about 6 plants. 21 is the age. There's no tax or regulated market in this bill. It's kind of like the DC thing where you can basically gift people marijuana and receive it as gifts. It would create a place where people are free to conduct their own affairs as they see fit, so long as they are not bothering anyone else. Sounds a little like that South African thing. Surely that's the Vermont way, said Conquest. The Judiciary Committee had supported the bill by an 8-3 vote. The surprise churn came after House Majority Leader Jill Krowinski, Democrat from Burlington, called a Democratic caucus just before the scheduled debate on the Hill. Whatever that means. Krowinski said Democratic leaders were working to ensure the H-170 had full support and full vetting, and they decided to support sending the bill to committee after many conversations with the House Democrats. Well, those are Democrats too. So again, Democrats are not your friend when it comes to legalizing marijuana. They should not, there's no more discussion that needs to be made. Why is it going to committee? Doesn't make any sense, man. All right, there's really nothing else here. The Human Services Committee was scheduled to visit a Montpelier medical marijuana dispensary Wednesday morning. Coincidence? I don't know. So that's just par for the course for legislators who, I don't know, maybe there's some corruption involved, but there's got to be a reason why that got booted around in a committee by Democrats in Vermont. And I've reported on Vermont before. Vermont has a lot of Democrats in their Congress and in their Senate in the state that are straight up right wingers, man. I don't know what's going on with that. You know, you got maybe rural areas where everybody's a right winger and people just put a D in front of their name because it looks fancy. I don't know what's going on, but I keep hearing some of the stuff they're saying about marijuana, and it sounds like right-wing rhetoric to me. And to kick this into a committee instead of putting it to a vote in the full Congress or the full House, that's absurd. Get that thing out of committee, send it to the full House, get a vote. We're worried about the Republican governor in Vermont. All of a sudden it's the Democrats that's causing the delays and fucking shit up again. So if you're out there stumping for Democrats, like Team Democrat, yay, they're the ones. Well, when it comes to marijuana, they ain't the ones, man. Neither are the Republicans, but they're definitely, no one's stepping out and taking the lead here. Both parties are kind of fractured and in need of some kind of a boost, something that would maybe give them some kind of a reputation with the actual voters and the people instead of their corporate donors that pretty much own them. Tampa Bay Times has another story for us. And again, it's just full wall-to-wall stuff. I can't skip anything here. So a powerful House Republican said Tuesday he'll consider revising his plan for medical pot after drawing criticism from marijuana supporters. Now, this is the kind of shit I'm talking about. This is why I made this channel, guys. This is the Tampa Bay Times, winner of 12 Pulitzer Prize. But for some fucking reason, Michael Alston or some shit, maybe the editor, someone somehow decided to put the word medical and the word pot together and let that one just fly. Man, can we just stop using the fucking word pot? What the hell is that? Who come up with that shit in the first place? That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard weed called. I don't mind calling it weed. I don't even mind calling it marijuana just because it's so fucking annoyingly like everywhere that you have no choice. It's called cannabis. I can't say that every time I read an article. I can't replace the word pot with cannabis every time. It would sound redundant. But pot, come on, man, it's ridiculous. Medical pot, pot shops, all that shit is just annoying. It's just ways to belittle something and make it seem more of a insignificant little childish thing. And if it was so childish, why the fuck do you lock people in cages over it? If it's so childish, how come there's a multi-billion-dollar industry around it? Might as well say there's like a $25 billion plus industry around marijuana. Maybe more like $50 billion. Let's just say in America, it's about a $50 billion industry. And a lot of it's still being made by the black market, and a lot of that is still being made by the cartels in Mexico. So the more you keep it illegal, the more you support all that shit. Anyway, Florida is probably lucky to come out of this thing with anything that resembles a medical marijuana program. I'll get to the quotes. Quote, "It's in all of our interests, whether you're a House or Senate, to make sure you get an implementing bill done this session," Rodriguez said. And that's another Republican. If not, there's a risk of a lawsuit and rules being written by a judge, Rodriguez warned. His proposal earned initial approval Tuesday from the House Health Quality Subcommittee, which voted 14-1 for the bill. See, this is what I'm talking about. These guys are scrambling around to write the rules before it's left up to just one person who might be persuaded by actual activists instead of, these politicians. So critics don't like this shit because, a requirement that non-terminal patients must have a doctor at least 90 days before they can get a cannabis recommendation. 90 days. So I got something wrong with me, and I go to the doctor, and I got to wait 90 days before I can get cannabis. No other thing in the world is that big of an intrusion of the government between you and your doctor. Are you fucking kidding? Who in their right mind thinks that can fly? And you can attach this to a constitutional amendment? Come on, guys. That's the most absurd thing I've ever heard of. Get the fuck out of here. This could be life-saving medicine, whether you say it's, non-terminal or not. Whatever, man. I'm getting so sick of that shit. Oh, you got to be dying to get the marijuana, man. That's basically, yeah, you got to be near death, man. You give people fucking morphine because they stub their toes these days. So shut the fuck up about what you should have to have wrong with you in order to get marijuana as medicine. It's good for everything. And by the way, smoking marijuana is medicine. So shut the fuck up and eating it and vaping on it. All those, you're banning the top 3 ways that people consume it right there. So good job. Your medical marijuana program is worth dog shit. And then you have the slow expansion of the number of licensed growers and dispensaries. How about not slow? How about just letting people grow their own medicine? Quote, the bill gets the policy wrong, said Ben Palera, executive director of Florida for Care, the group behind the constitutional amendment. There are numerous provisions of HB 1397 that I believe are violative of both the spirit and the letter of the Florida Constitution and the will of 71% of the voters. So remember, dipshits, legislators, mostly Republican in Florida, this is a constitutional amendment. You can't just attach whatever dog shit you want to it. And it has to get approval of 3/4 of the fucking Senate and the House or whatever. They got this marijuana commission that has to weigh in on it as well. So they're going to keep writing bullshit, and then someone's going to kick it back to them, and they're going to adjust it a little bit at a time. Why don't you people that wrote the fucking thing in the first place, why don't you tell them what you want? Tell them you want smoking, you want vaping, you want treats, you want medibles, but with the stipulation that they have child-proof containers and labels that don't look like Fruit Loops or whatever the fuck. Just tell them what you want. Give them ideas. They don't apparently want to go ask Colorado, hey, what's a good idea? What works? They don't do that in Florida. They're like backwards ass bullshit. They don't care about what works. They run pill factories down there. They had pill mills and they tried to get rid of them, but they still got them. And then, now you got instead of a pill mill, you got a heroin dealer to call up. Florida, you're getting all your shit wrong. You don't know what you're doing. So listen to the people and, hey, dear the people, why don't you tell them what you want? And so, I don't know. Rodriguez says the concerns on the 90-day requirement resonates with him. He said smoking likely won't be allowed. Now, this is the Republican guy that was talking about what they hammered out after thinking about it for a while. But he might compromise on vaping. Hey, dipshit, smoking should be allowed, all right? People should be allowed to buy fresh marijuana buds. Because why not? There's nothing dangerous about it. Senate did say, the key senators say the bill will include more licenses and eliminate the 90-day requirement and allow vaping and possibly edibles. Oh, do tell. So several lawmakers on the panel said they oppose medical marijuana, of course. That was a common view in the early part of public testimony on the issue when groups openly opposed to medical cannabis praised the House's effort. And that's just sad. What a shit show this Florida government is. And, you guys might as well wear Pfizer patches and Lilly patches and Incest Therapeutics Incorporated badges and shit, because you don't represent the fucking people anymore. You represent the big pharma. You represent the health companies that don't want nothing to do with marijuana because, hey, guess what? It works. You guys are just terrible, man. Florida, you're awful. People running this marijuana program, you're really gonna fuck it up. I know you are. I really hope you don't. I really hope the activists kind of knock their heads together, maybe get some real ideas to them. All right, now we have Washington State. I usually say stuff like, a medical marijuana program is a good program if you haven't heard much about it. And I guess that's what's been going on in Washington. I have heard that they're changing things, and I don't know, I guess I'm going to be doing some stories about Washington. But one of the good things that they're trying to do is they're trying to allow medical marijuana in schools. Well, this is a no-brainer, guys. Megan Holtz sat in the front row of a committee hearing earlier this week holding her 4-year-old daughter Maddie in one arm and a syringe filled with cannabis oil in the other. Quote, cannabis is what kept her alive all this time, Holtz said. She isn't supposed to be here. Maddie was born blind, deaf, and has many health complications from a rare terminal disease called Zellweger syndrome. Holtz says babies like her usually dies shortly after birth, but Maddie has surpassed her life expectancy because of medical marijuana. Again, medical marijuana is a lifesaver, and again, it saved this person's life, this girl's life. Lawmakers in the Senate Early Learning and K through 12 Education Committee heard parents like Holt speak out about the benefits of medical marijuana and how it has helped their children function without pain or other issues until their next dose. House Bill 1060 would allow a parent or guardian to privately administer medical marijuana to a child while at school, on a school bus, or at a school-sponsored event. Under existing law, schools are not required to allow on-site use of medical marijuana, but are permitted to allow it if they choose. The measure awaits action in the Ways and Means Committee. We're talking about kids who already go through so much medical turmoil. Why not give them the opportunity to go to school and make friends, Holt said. This is not a scary thing. These kids are wonderful kids. They use a controversial medicine, but it shouldn't matter if it's what works for them. Why is it so controversial? Holt said it usually takes just 1 second to give Maddie her medicine through a feeding tube 4 times a day. Other parents said it can be administered simply by having a child eat a cookie or drink a chocolate milk. Yeah, I'm not really all about that eating cookies all the time thing. Republican Senator Joe Fain, the vice chair of the committee, said he doesn't see how this would be any different than a parent coming to school to give their child an opioid if they needed it for whatever reason. What reason do you have to give kids opioids, man? Please list them in the comment section below. And I guarantee you, cannabis replaces all of them. According to the Washington Department of Health, there are 87 children registered for medical marijuana since the rollout of the database last year. But the DOH doesn't know the circumstances surrounding each child or if they enrolled in school. Last year, Colorado became the third state, joining New Jersey and Maine, to allow students to use marijuana in school for medical purposes. The Washington state legislature took a slightly different turn that same year by specifying schools are not required to allow on-site use of medical marijuana, but are permitted to allow if they so choose. Jesse Vavrus is of the Washington State School Directors Association said WSSDA is against the bill because it would conflict with federal law. Here we go again. Like I said earlier, I was talking about something else, and I said, oh, this is what they do. They always preemptively try to scare you like, oh, it's against federal law, so guess what? We're not going to allow it because then the feds will come in and mess things all up. You know what? How about if you allow it and then deal with it when they come, all right? Which is what they say here. So they're worried about the federal funds. And let's face it. To receive federal funds, Vervroes says districts must abide by the Safe and Drug-Free Schools and Communities Act. Must have drug and tobacco-free workplace. I'm sure that's a fact. All right, according to the bill, look, like, you know what? You go in any one of the purses or whatever the guy teachers have, their pockets or what, something. They got little desk drawers. They all got orange bottles, and they're probably all loaded up with Xanax. So come on, man. This is not a drug-free school, man. There's no way. According to the bill's fiscal report, in the state fiscal year 2016, the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction received $893 million in federal funds. And she don't want a penny of that to get compromised by these medical marijuana pesky patients. It's absurd, man. So, you know what I say to that lady, Jessica Vavrus? Fuck off, man. You know, it's got nothing to do with you or your funding. And, all right, so Democratic Senator Mark Mullet suggested moving forward. Could we put this law into place so these parents' concerns are addressed, and if the feds come after us, then we go to Plan B and figure out what to do next? Stop acting like Plan A is, oh, the feds say it's illegal, so we're not going to do it. That's not why we call the states laboratories of democracy there, idiot. All right, we're going to watch this quick video here about a kidney patient who was taken off a transplant list for using medical marijuana. Unfucking believable.
A kidney patient in Maine taken off a transplant waiting list for using medical marijuana.
State lawmakers are now considering a bill that would prohibit Maine hospitals from doing that, even though one local hospital says there are medical reasons to disqualify patients who use pot.
CBS 13's Brad Rogers looks at both sides of this transplant debate, new at 5:30.
I'm not ready to die. I'm 32 years old.
Gary Godfrey has Alport syndrome, a hereditary disease which causes renal failure at a young age. He says it also causes debilitating pain, nausea, and anxiety.
I've tried so many pharmaceuticals and none of them worked. But the medical cannabis does. It helps me function. It helps me take care of my kids.
Godfrey says he needs a new kidney and was put on Maine Medical Center's transplant list in 2003. In 2010, Maine Med adopted a new policy.
I was informed that they changed their policy, that you can no longer use marijuana. I was removed from the list.
Maine Medical Center spokesman Clay Holzman could not comment on the specific case, but issued a statement Tuesday saying in part, our drug use policy currently prohibits transplant candidates from using marijuana due to the risk of an invasive fungal infection known as aspergillosis.
Now, wow, they're already going to go ahead and just say that there's a risk of getting the aspergillosis because of smoking marijuana. You can get aspergillosis from anything. You can drink some water and breathe the water vapors or something and get it. It's pretty common fungal infection, and in fact, you catch it at hospitals without doing anything. So to just dump that on marijuana and be like, oh, you might smoke some moldy weed. We heard there might be some mold in the weed. So that's another one of those bullshit side effects of the propaganda talking about the moldy weed. Now you got people actually actionably using that as some kind of validation or justification to kick somebody off of a waiting list for a kidney transplant. Are you fucking kidding me? This isn't science that's been proven. There's no science proven that by smoking marijuana, he's increasing his risk of this fungal infection. And there's also no scientific connection between this fungal infection affecting this transplant. Just saying. If you had the science to back that up, that would be nice. But I know you don't, because there's just no studies to back this up.
Maine Med also says in its statement that even during a transplant, this fungal infection can be life-threatening for patients whose immune system is compromised.
So his immune system wouldn't be compromised if he was allowed to use his medicine. If you're telling him he's just going to have to quit medicine and then take the piss test and then still wait on the waiting list to finally be done and then take another piss test, you're going to kill the guy waiting for his transplant anyway.
Maine Med says once off marijuana, patients can requalify and get put back on the hospital's wait list. But Godfrey says marijuana is the only drug.
Yeah, just quit smoking weed, buddy. That's what they tell people with this fake ass marijuana nausea shit that you keep hearing about, CHS or whatever. I don't know if that's what it was, but chronic hyperemesis syndrome, or cannabis hyperemesis. You see, it's CHS. It's chronic. It's because that's already a thing, and people smoke weed and they have it, and then blah, blah, blah. Well, basically, when people are smoking too much weed on a regular basis, that's just, it's not good to overindulge on anything. But yeah, they plug this thing in. You got this problem here, and you got that problem there, and it's all because of smoking weed. One way you can just stop it all is just quit smoking weed. Quit smoking weed and you won't have this fungal infection, and then we can operate on you and do this transplant. I would argue that this is all just hyped up bullshit propaganda. I feel really bad for the people that are definitely affected.
You should not be discriminated against for the type of medicine you choose.
Gary Godfrey testified in support of a bill that would prohibit hospitals from rejecting transplant patients solely for using medical marijuana. That bill remains in committee. At the State House, Brad Rogers, CBS 13 News.
committee. That's where all the great things that could help people with medical marijuana always end up, and it always end up where they die. Hopefully the patients don't die to, satisfy you guys with your prohibition ambitions. But it's just absurd, man. These fungal infections exist no matter whether you smoke weed or not. You can probably do it to test the guy, see if he has this fungal infection or not, because he probably don't. I don't know why you guys just assume that just because you smoke medical marijuana, you're going to have this fucking fungal infection. Nothing could be farther from the truth. And him being taken off of this is, I think this is it's a matter of liability now. I think that anything that happens to this guy from here on out, they are liable for that. Whether he gets, he needs this kidney transplant. There's no two ways around it. So obviously something bad's going to happen to him, and you guys will be at fault. It's pretty terrible, man. All this talk about medical marijuana, people still don't fucking buy it. People still don't believe that marijuana is medicine and or whatever, cure-all, I call it, because it is. It's a cure-all. Why is it a cure-all? Because your body needs the cannabinoids. And why does the body need the cannabinoids? Because it's part of the overall system of what we call the immune system. If you looked at the immune system and what they taught you about it in school, that's the one thing they forgot to mention, is that everything in your body has cannabinoid receptors, CB1 and CB2 receptors. And when you use cannabinoid, the receptors are fulfilled with their, it's like a key fitting into a door so you can open the door and things can happen. These things that I'm talking about that can happen are anti-inflammation. You're boosting your immune system to fight off bacterial infections, and a full range of, helping your body perform its normal functions and duties without complication, that's one of the ways you maintain good health, is if all your organs are functioning properly. So based on the scant knowledge available regarding the endocannabinoid system and cannabinoid science overall, some researchers have theorized that many diseases like multiple sclerosis and fibromyalgia may be caused by a simple deficiency in endogenous, internally produced cannabinoids, also called endocannabinoids. The condition has been labeled clinical endocannabinoid deficiency, or CECD. It is sometimes called endocannabinoid deficiency syndrome. Now, this is real shit. Not like when you just take something that already exists, like chronic hyperemesis or whatever, and just blow it into cannabis being the cause. Researchers understand that the body's endocannabinoid system maintains homeostasis, meaning that it controls and regulates pain, appetite, sleep, inflammation, and cell metabolism, including the life cycle of cells. Thus, a lack of cannabinoids could cause disruption to multiple systems in the body. It is theorized that this disruption or lack of hemostasis then leads to more significant and life-threatening problems. Are patients who gain relief from their symptoms from cannabis simply supplementing a deficiency in their endocannabinoid system with cannabinoids from marijuana? Can cannabinoids from marijuana be thought of as simply supplements or even in extreme cases replacements for human endocannabinoids? Several notable researchers have proposed that an endocannabinoid deficiency may be responsible for ailments like migraines, multiple sclerosis, and Crohn's disease. According to Dr. Ethan Rousseau, the senior medical advisor at GW Pharmaceuticals, a British company that manufactures Sativex, a synthetic form of THC. Quote, deficient cannabinoid levels may be the underlying cause of numerous conditions alleviated by cannabis. Boy, that's a funny one. At one time, I said that the reason that Big Pharma wanted to get involved in the marijuana prohibition back in the day is cannabinoids were already being used, mostly in tinctures or whatever, but cannabis was already used as medicine in the U.S. pharmacopoeia. It was the number 1 and number 2 most prescribed medicine for nearly, I believe, 80 years, maybe not quite that much. But it ended up being one of the reasons why patent medicine laws were made. And then the pharmaceutical industry was like, well, now that people are going to start getting sick because they don't use cannabis anymore, we can come around and try to make up and invent cures for all these things that's going to be going wrong with them. Can cannabis slow aging? Some experts go even further. Dr. Robert Melmaid, former chairman of biology department at the University of Colorado, believes cannabinoids may even slow the aging process. Most researchers acknowledge the role of free radicals in the aging process. Free radicals quickly multiply and become unmanageable without antioxidants to help flush them out of the body. An abundance of free radicals in the body can also result in inflammation, amplifying other health problems that are commonly associated with aging. Melmaid believes that cannabinoids may go beyond helping patients with MS or cancer. He believes they play a role in preventing and regulating all age-related illnesses. For example, cannabinoids like cannabidiol, CBD, cannabiochromine, CBC, are known to relieve inflammation, while other cannabinoids like tetrahydrocannabinol and cannabinol are known to act as antioxidants. These are two important contributors in the road to homeostasis and the overall health. With relatively little known about cannabinoids and their interaction with the human body, this new research is pointed towards a future in cannabinoid therapy, whether derived from the whole plant or via single cannabinoid extracts, may be an effective treatment for a much wider range of diseases than originally believed. Nobody dies from getting old. People die from age-related illnesses, according to Melmaid. Medical establishment deals with many age-related illnesses like cancer and cardiovascular disease on a regular basis. In other words, a person with a heart attack or has a heart attack and the doctors and nurses attempt to save his or her life after most of the damage has been done. However, cannabinoid therapy may change this reactionary model to one of prevention. Prevention is the key, people. The application of cannabinoid therapy may be used to reduce inflammation and free radicals, thus improving or eliminating dozens of age-related conditions that otherwise would wreak their havoc, after which doctors and medical techs simply clean up the mess and try to keep the patient alive. In the coming decades, such an approach may seem as primitive as the application of leeches. And it pretty much is. That's what I've always said. Is right now medicine is just throwing Band-Aids and aspirin at shit and hoping that it goes away. Well, prevention, you would have never got it in the first place. And that's what cannabinoids can do for you. That's what the endocannabinoid system is for. So cannabinoid deficiency is why all your people that you know that don't smoke weed, that's why they're fucking sick, all right? And whether it's just typical allergy sick all the way to they're dying, they're on their deathbed from cancer. Hempcrete. 3 reasons hempcrete can change the world of construction. It can be used to make products such as textiles, oils, fuel, paper, and twine. This is talking about marijuana in general. Used as a source of nutrition in other ways that may be surprising for some. Pot. Pot is a building material. You can make a house out of it. Okay, hempcrete is a building material derived from the woody interior of cannabis sativa plant, industrial hemp, that is combined with lime and water. It's beginning to garner interest for construction across the United States. The outer portion of the stalks will provide fiber for textiles necessary in buildings. It has been used throughout Europe for centuries, but current industrial hemp restrictions in the United States have prevented it from being a commonly used product. And then here's your 3 reasons. You have humidity and temperature regulation. Hempcrete naturally regulates humidity and temperature in the building, which can eliminate the need for heating and cooling systems and save large amounts of energy. Sounds like something you need to have in one of those expensive-ass indoor grow operations where environmentals are really hard to control. Anyway, it also allows for buildings who hope to leave a minimal carbon footprint and achieve the best potential building code levels to do so because it is a carbon negative. The breathable nature of hempcrete works with historic and modern building plans, helping to provide optimal health and comfort for those inside. hempcrete buildings are able to last for as long as any other type and naturally protects from a number of issues that cause decay or destruction in others. It is fireproof, immune to termites and vapor, previous to naturally lower humidity and eliminate the threat of condensation. Hempcrete has a proven track record in Europe where hemp's cultivation has never been criminalized. Since the material was created in the 1980s in France, it has been integrated into buildings across the continent. A home built by Prince Charles, a 7-story tower in France, and a Marks and Spencer department store are just a handful of the hundreds of buildings constructed with hempcrete. So there you have it, folks. Hempcrete, just another reason why hemp should be legal to grow, just like tomatoes, and everybody should grow it and everybody should have a house made out of it. Legal weed, is it winning on social media? Well, this is a pretty cool article. Check it out if you want. It's in the Marijuana Times. Legal weed is winning on social media. Jason Sander. And basically what you're saying, what we seen about a week ago, was Twitter had somehow set up a new search system to where it kind of, I don't know why they would do this, but it kind of censors your search results to the point where if you typed in the word cannabis in the marijuana in the search, it would come up blank, which raised a few eyebrows, to say the least. Well, some complaints were filed, and that was reversed. But in the meantime, yeah, Google has an advertising policy that bans the promotional medical marijuana. But, meanwhile, you can have Incest Therapeutics on there selling deadly mouth spray or whatever they got. It's all good. So you got all these different social media outlets are where the conversation is being had that wasn't being had before. All you had before was people that went and bought a High Times magazine and took it home and smoked it and left it on the coffee table and maybe someone else read it. Now there's a thing called Reddit where there's millions of threads talking about marijuana. Now you have just everything. You have Google. You can search and find out any information you want about marijuana. Facebook. I'm sure if you have Facebook and you got just a couple of marijuana friends, you've seen everything that you could see there, which is a lot. It's educational. It's fun. And it's definitely a big thing. Now, another thing that they talk about in this article is the fact that when you go down to the bottom and you find a comment section, when you find the comment section on propaganda or negative marijuana stories, it's alive. You might find me in there because I'll go in there and I will comment as the Daily Dope Show if I'm allowed to or if I'm able to, or I'll use my actual name, Brandon Strong. Believe me, folks, I'm not shy. As you can see, I run this channel. So I'm not shy at all. I'll talk to anybody. I'll say anything. And I will debate Kevin Sabat's bitch ass if he ever wants to. Meanwhile, look for me in the comment section all over. Whenever you see a marijuana article, you better believe I probably already read it. Last but not least, this week we have the Marijuana Majority website run by Tom Angel, if you know who he is. He's one of the great marijuana writers of the day. And he has this little thing here on the Marijuana Majority page where it basically shows, I don't want to say all these people use marijuana or even have tried it, but it just has them and a positive thing that they've said about marijuana quoted. Because we got to keep talking about good people that smoke marijuana or good people that are positive about marijuana, I guess you could say. And this week we have Elijah Wood. The dude from the the Lord of the Rings dude, kid or whatever. A lot of jokes were leveled about Elijah Wood and also the guy on Harry Potter. But anyway, I don't know. I don't even know if I'm talking about the right guy. He says the whole notion that marijuana is illegal is past the point of ridiculousness. And that's kind of a testament to like his generation. He's way younger than me. I'm like 45. I'm getting to be an old dinosaur in this, thing. But whatever, you know, he's a younger person. And like a lot of people that make public statements about marijuana, unfortunately, they always have to put a disclaimer in there about how they're not that big. You know, they did, like Bill Clinton didn't inhale and yada yada. Everybody's got their little disclaimer. His is, to be honest, I'm not really much of a pot smoker, but I've always been an advocate. I just feel it should be decriminalized. And I kind of like that stance. I mean, even if it comes from somebody that don't smoke weed at all. Like, I tried it, it wasn't for me, but you know what? Why the fuck are they putting people in cages for plants? I like that stance, and I like this one too. I tend to believe that Elijah Wood smokes more weed than he's leading us on to believe here, but that's just me. So yeah, if you want to find out about people that are good and what they've said about marijuana for the most part, and then you can kind of, you know, you can guess on some of them. Like Kevin Smith, he's not going to tell you about, you know, what strain of dab he hit this morning when he rolled out of bed or whatever, but you can pretty much bet your bottom dollar that he smokes weed, right? I mean, he's Kevin Smith. Or maybe he don't. Who knows? He's Kevin Smith. But he says you got to legalize the weed. And that's it, guys. It's been a crazy week again. A lot of stories happening. And again, I'm going to keep cranking these stories out as much as I can. It's going to be a busy summer. I'll address a couple of concerns about what I do here and maybe talk about that in a video on its own one of these days. But in the meantime, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Your support is greatly appreciated. And currently, all you have to do to support me is watch my clips and maybe throw a like on the thing down there. If you're not already subscribed, I would love for you to subscribe. And you would probably, if you like what I'm doing, would like to be subscribed, because you'll, you know, see my videos for sure when I put new videos out. See you next time, and have a good one.